Hi there, Steve Kaufman here to talk once again about language learning. And today I want to talk about the importance of our sense of identity, our sense of who we are. And I'm going to put a link in the explanation or comment section just below my video, a link to an article that appeared in the New Yorker magazine, which shows how, in order to try to persuade people, for example, to persuade people that vaccinations are good, or to persuade people of a political point of view, it's very hard to persuade people simply based on facts. A much bigger part of it is how these people identify. If someone identifies with a certain political party or with a particular country, then you can present all the facts you want about how this political party is bad or our country did something bad, and we won't believe it. We don't want to believe it because it's crucial to our sense of identity, our sense of who we are. And there are, in this article, you'll see that there are a number of experiments that have been done that show that different efforts to persuade people of things, if it doesn't attack or if it doesn't deal with this core issue of their identity, then all these arguments are useless. And in the same article, there's also reference to the fact that, for example, in taking tests, as a positive affirmation, an affirmation, I can do it, will influence the results. Or if girls are convinced that girls are not good at math and I'm a girl and that's part of my identity, then I won't do well in the math exam. Things like this. Now, this has real application for language learning, and I've always noticed it. In the book that I wrote almost 10 years ago, I refer to the importance of sort of cultural weightlessness. The more we think we are unique and our culture is unique and we're sort of tied up in this whole sense of who we are, the more difficult it is to learn another language, because to learn another language you have to want to be one of them. You have to project yourself into that other community. And I also mentioned sort of an anecdote when I was selling lumber in Japan, and we had a problem with our lumber grades that the Japanese felt didn't quite match the needs of the market. So we sent a chief grader with 30 years of experience working in a small town at the sawmill. We sent him to Japan so he could better understand the needs of the Japanese customers. But of course, he went there with his identity of someone who had graded according to the North American grading rule for 30 years, and he'd worked his way up the ladder, and this is who he was. So rather than trying to listen to the customers, how they wanted the lumber graded, he would lecture them on how we did it. Well, one evening, the customer took us out to a Japanese bar. And particularly in those days, if you went to a Japanese bar, you got a nice little girl to sit beside you. A little girl, like someone in their 20s, a cutie. And she would talk with you and tell you how handsome you were and pour your drinks and so forth. And of course, I was there and I was speaking Japanese. And this fellow couldn't speak Japanese. And this girl, his girl, said to him, "And do you speak Japanese?" And he'd had a few drinks and he said, "No, but I can learn." And that evening he had a great time, and don't read too much into it. We all went home after our few drinks there. But the next day, because now all of a sudden he had softened a bit, he was maybe a little happier to be in Japan, felt a little less threatened. He wasn't clinging to his identity as a Canadian lumber grader, and he started listening. And so it was, again, an example of this whole importance of attitude and our sense of identity when it comes to language learning. I will repeat because it bears repeating. Language learning is based on only three things. All the rest doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who your teacher is, who your grammar book is, whether you're on link or not on link. What matters is your attitude. You think you can do it. You want to do it. You like doing it. The second thing is time, the amount of time you spend. That's going to depend on your attitude. And the third thing is developing that ability to notice. But that also depends on attitude. You have to want to notice. And so the sense of identity, if you're prepared to not cling to your own identity, and I'm English-speaking North American, and therefore I'm not good at languages, or we Japanese are so unique, or any of these kinds of things, where you're clinging to that identity and you won't let go of that sort of comfort of that, what do they call it, safety blanket. So identity is a big deal. Positive affirmation, but meaning it, really thinking that you are someone who can operate in different cultures. You don't have to be in your own culture. You can enjoy other cultures. You can enjoy interacting with people of a different culture. You can learn another language. You like learning it. All of these kinds of things that relate to attitude, but really relate to this idea of identity. So it's interesting how we as human beings work. We're not that rational. Some of our belief systems are very hard to dislodge. So read the article. I thought it was very interesting, and you'll see that it has application as well for language learning. And I look forward to your own experiences in this regard, and I thank you for listening.